Which brings us to today's presentation. This was developed by the members. They said it'd be really great if we talked about a book, a business book, and then we went a step further. We said, what if we talk about a business book that a member implemented into their company and used it to grow their company, and talk about how that went. So we have 4 business owners. We're going to do a panel with 3 and then a short PowerPoint at the end of it talking about how they read these books, what they got from these books, and what they got out of it. So the first 2 business owners we're going to be bringing up is Adam DiMuzio and Karen Rowling. Let's give them a round of applause. Coming up, guys. All right. Adam, have a seat. This is yours, buddy.
Thanks.
So Adam owns Red Rook, and I'd love for you to explain what Red Rook is, just so we have a frame of reference of what you do.
Sure. So we help facilitate commerce throughout inventory channels. So if you're trying to sell inventory in retail, online, social, marketplaces like eBay and Amazon, or on mobile platforms. So we help, wherever you try to sell inventory, we help you get it out there to the world.
So just to explain that a little further, let's say the Guggenheim Museum or any, like Mosey has museums.
Correct. We worked a lot. We started with traditional retail. We do a lot of point-of-sale based retail consulting. We have a niche in museum spaces. So we have clients like the Guggenheim or the Ringling down in Sarasota. And then from there we branch into e-commerce platforms and now social media as well to help facilitate inventory throughput instead of just a bricks and mortar, but to expand to that.
So you help people sell stuff through the internet. Let's just keep it simple. Yep. And you also help maintain that.
Yeah, so as long as you can sell things, that's what we try to do. We don't maintain the actual sites. We just maintain your ability to.
So let's talk about the book Great by Choice by Jim Collins. Can you tell us when you read it and a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. I read it about 4 years ago, and I read it every year. Actually, I listened to it. I told you I don't have a copy to show. Because it spoke to me. It's kind of in good to great when I first, you read that one by Jim Collins, and it just seemed very kind of, okay, I got it. But in this one, he goes through some very step-by-step examples with different companies. And he has a comparison company, like one that did well and one that did bad in various industries, with just 3 really concrete ideas that you take. And when I noticed that some of the things we had done on a very small scale, I was like, wow, we did that. That was great. We succeeded there. Or, oh, wow, we did all those bad things. We failed there. And then I was able to actually implement more and more things from it. So I found it to be very implementation-based.
Okay, so let's talk about, let me just show a picture of your team. How many people work in your company?
Right now we have 19. So this was actually a year or 2 ago.
And then they're very lively. They photoshopped each other?
That's what happens in my office when you take a picture and you send it out to everybody. And yeah, everyone just added something. They kept resending it out one person at a time until we get to that.
So Adam, let's go into the nuggets of the book. So take us through the first one.
So the idea of the book is they say you want to become a 10x leader and how you grow a company by 10 times and how you be this ultimate leader within a company and you have ambition to grow your company, which I think is usually a pretty good topic for this group. And the first idea they talk about is fanatical discipline. And they talk about a 20-mile march and how you have to be just very, very disciplined on anything that you do. And you take your core beliefs and values and you adhere to them day in, day out. You don't go against the grain. You only do what you want to do, and you do it the way you want to do it. You take your proven formula and you continue to attack it. And if there's days that you think, oh, I can go farther or different, you don't do that. You do your 20-mile march. You do your 20 miles, and that's it. And it's that the repetition and the monotony, but it's the fact that you just refine processes and you just make them very, very steadfast and perfect, and you keep your core. You don't get distracted. You don't go to something shiny and new. You don't, move off course. You don't quit early, and you don't overextend your team by going late. You just keep on your path. And they go through some real-world examples, like the 2 people first going to the South Pole in this expedition and how different the team leaders were, but how incredibly successful they both were in different expeditions. But why one ultimately failed and one didn't was something almost as simple as saying one guy just doesn't go 20 miles every day. And it didn't matter how cold it was or even if it was how really warm, they could go farther to rest his team and just only go 20 miles.
So how did you implement that in your company, or were you doing that already?
Sure. So one of the things we did is we started saying if we were a service-based company and we were selling hours of time, we knew we had about 500 hours to fill, which was a little of a stretch, but if we could fill it, that was a comfortable amount for the team. Well, if we have a month where you could sell and maybe implement 600 or 700 hours, that's better for the bottom line. But now also we're taxing the team too much, right? People working overtime and you start losing culture aspects and people are grumpy. And then all of a sudden the next month, maybe it's 400. Well, or 300. And now you start getting scheduling issues, right? How do I staff for that? If you don't know if you're going to, how many hours you got to sell, how many people you need, how do you know your capacity and your throughput? So we said, okay, we had this number. It was a stretch. We hit 500. And if it was 490 or 510, that was okay. But we really made it very hard to say we weren't going to try to oversell it or undersell it or overpromise or under. So then we said, great, how do you oversell it? And then you could tell clients, okay, well, that'll be next month before we can get to it because we knew our capacity.
So basically, instead of stretching out your capacity, you just set a mark. The mark was
Correct.
we need 500 hours of service consulting time sold.
Correct.
Anything over that, we'll put over to the next month.
Just got to be pushed off, correct. And then once you say, okay, great, now we have whatever, 1,000 or 2,000 hours built up, now we know we can comfortably move into another level of capacity, hire an extra person. But the team itself was never too taxed, and then thus we were able to stay very much on focus.
So it's like a muscle. You could build the muscle
Absolutely.
so the team's used to that 500 hours
It's a great
until
example,
you.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us the second thing that you got out of the book.
So
Put the mic closer.
Sorry. So the second one goes, and they talk about empirical creativity. And this is my favorite part. It's this great example of firing bullets before cannonballs. And they say major innovations in companies usually are not good. And that companies that do major innovation and the first movers to market are usually end up failing or being sold because of the tax they put on the corporate structure. They say, think differently, be creative, but then take a little tiny thing and test it, right? Talk to your customers. You may think that you have the best, world's greatest idea, that you're totally going to revolutionize your industry, and then implement it and spend time, money, and effort and find out no one wants it, or no one wants to pay for it, or it doesn't work as well as you thought it did. And so they really harp on this a lot to go through these examples to show that just because you can buy out another company, it's taken away from your core focus. Or you have this new product, if it takes 50 or 70% of your time, or it takes your resources, all of a sudden you start killing the goose that's laying the golden egg.
So how were you guys able to fire the bullets instead of the cannon?
Sure. So even right now, we're working with a product going into e-commerce. So we're a retail-based consulting company. And that internet thing is this really cool thing we should be working with. So we found a product that integrated already with our product, and we can just say, great, really easily with no investment, we could fire a bullet and then say, did our customers want it? Yes, they did. Okay, great. We could recalibrate and say, how do we get more features? Fire another bullet and see what works. Could we develop our own product that was better, and what would we put in it? So then it would start testing that and actually talking to our clients about what they wanted in a bigger, more powerful system that would give them more functionality. Because now we start building out functionality sets in scope before we then fired a major cannonball into the product.
Right, so it's basically test
market.
tip your foot in the water slowly, see if it's the right
Correct.
temperature, everything set up before you start a whole new project without testing anything.
Correct. It's A/B testing. It's just making sure that you have things correct before you say, I'm going to spend $100,000, $200,000, $1 million on product or idea X to find out it's not what you hoped it would be.
Okay, and the third one, becoming a 10Xer?
The last one, it's called productive paranoia, or leading above the death line. And this one they're saying, there's things in your company, there's things in outside forces in the world that are going to destroy your company. They're coming after you. Something's going out there, it's going to totally rip you apart. How can you plan for it now? You don't know what it is. You don't know where it's coming from. But what can you do? How can you be productively paranoid to figure it out? So the example, they talk about Bill Gates in the 80s when Microsoft's on its boom, and he wrote this letter about how Microsoft was going to be destroyed. And some Wall Street analysts found it, and it hit their stock price. And he's like, wait, this is just my way to say, wake up, we can't live in an ivory tower. So for us, we built in cash reserves. Because again, if you're a service-based company, how can that's the biggest death line, right? If all of a sudden you just run out of money and you can't sell, you're dead. So we said, how do we make sure that we have 6 months working capital in the bank? So we know that if sales dry up, if our product launch isn't, if everything else we do end up going wrong, we can survive for 6 months to then re-strategize and pivot. So for us, that was us doing that. Was saying how we know that run out of cash, we're dead. So how do we stay above that?
And can you take us through the growth track of your company, like how the first few years that you guys were just trying to figure it out, and then when you started really honing in?
Yeah, so we're your average 10-year, 15-year overnight success story. So the first 10 years was just flailing around, just trying to whatever we could sell or do. So I don't really count them. But I'll say over the last 4 years, we've gone from about a $700,000 company to last year was $2.7 million, with about a 20 to 30% growth every year.
And that's from following these principles and just tracking your growth?
It was really, so seeing these things laid out and then saying, okay, what ones don't we follow, and then how can we put them into place, and then actually kind of just start tightening up everything else and saying, well, what else can we use, what else can we bring forward to make sure we can't go out of business? How do we future-proof ourselves? and then how do we develop new products that can continue to let us grow.
In just a couple minutes, can you just talk about your culture? Because you have a very unique culture with your team.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, if people that know us, yeah, we're a heavily culture-based company.
Tell them about this, because I think this visually it tells you about the culture much better.
So we moved into our new building, the new offices, about a year ago, and we have 4 bathrooms, and we told everyone, individuals or teams, you have $500 to decorate a bathroom however you want, as long as it's in good taste. We don't care. Don't even tell us, right? You go in on the weekends and work, and so we just gave people $500, and these are 2 of the best. We have a Super Mario bathroom, and then the Game of Thrones, which is, who doesn't have castle walls in bathrooms, right? But we have a basketball court and a pickleball court in our warehouse, and we have a garden in our parking lot, and we have desks made out of 400-year bowling alleys, and it's just fun and different because we feel if you're going to be there for 40 hours a week, you should have fun.
And was this Cinco de Mayo? What was going on here?
That was actually at a great room escape.
What?
The Great Room Escape.
The Great Room Escape. What is that?
You get locked in a room with like 6 people. So we took the entire place over. So you get locked in a room and you have to find your way out. And so there's clues about how it's a big puzzle and a big game. So we're big gamers and puzzle people. So yeah, you just get locked in a room.
And that's great for your programmers, right? To keep them sharp. Yeah.
Yeah. So you sit there and you say, how do you get out? And you have to follow clues and the little detective story to actually find a key to unlock the door.
Awesome. Let's give Adam a round of applause. That was awesome. All right. Next is Karen. Karen is the owner of the Seabird Insurance Company, and the book that she used to really supercharge her company is Hyper Sales Growth by Jack Daly. So Karen, tell us a little bit about this book, and I know Money Bags is one of the things that you want to talk about. Tell us what you learned with Jack Daly.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the first thing I did want to talk about was the Money Bag, so I brought it along with me so you guys can check it out. First of all, Seabird Insurance Agency, we're here in Tampa, and Property and Casualty Insurance Agency, so we do home, auto, business, that type of stuff. And by the way, that drone is excluded on a lot of those business policies, so if you business owners use that, definitely talk to your insurance agent about it first. I'm not kidding, by the way.
No, we had, when we were filming in Jacksonville, there was a homeless gentleman that read us knew the exact,
oh, yeah.
And I said, where'd he get all the information? He knew every different exclusion. So you got to be careful with that.
Yeah, there's some privacy issues there too, not just following.
Yeah, we just use it for recreation. But anyways,
Okay. So the Money Bag is something that I always have with me in my car and my briefcase. So when I meet with a new prospect, I can instantly, as soon as I go out to the parking lot, I write a little thank you note to them, and it's unique to me. So I know it's kind of hard to tell, but down on the right-hand corner there, I like wine, so that's me out in Napa. I like crawfish. My husband's from New Orleans. We're big New Orleans folks, so that's a party for crawfish boil. A Bucks game, me doing CrossFit, and then my stamps are all unique to me as well. So the stamps you can't really see there, but I've got them in the bag if you guys want to check them out. You get it from like Shutterfly. You can get this stuff anywhere. And it's made such an impression upon my prospects because literally the next day or maybe 2 days later after I've met with them, they're getting a handwritten note from me that I basically drop in their mailbox on the way out the door. So that's why we call it the Money Bag. It's got pens in here, stamps in here, envelopes, everything. So it just takes 2 minutes in your car to write a little note of something that you connected with on that prospect. So obviously you guys will have your own unique money bag with those pictures of you, your family, or whatever that you connected with on that person. So that's something that we implemented right away.
And then the role practicing.
Oh yeah, role practicing. So I have 12 employees, and before I heard Jack Daly, I actually heard him speak and then read his book, and I thought to myself, wow, when he was saying this, how simple this is. He's like, if you're not doing a role practice with your employees, they're practicing on your prospects or your customers. And so what we implemented is once a week we do role practicing, and it's hard for me to always be there. So when my employees do it without me, they'll record it and they text it to me, and then I'll listen to it, and then I'll just provide them feedback, usually through WhatsApp or something like that. I'll give them feedback of how I would have explained it better to the customer. As you guys know, insurance is not an easy subject, and we feel like we do a really good job of breaking down something really difficult, very easy for somebody to understand. So that takes a lot of role practicing. So, you think about any professional sport, football and whatnot, they're out there practicing every day for the game at the end of the week. So that's when we started implementing role practicing. The employees at first were very nervous and were kind of shy to do it, and now they really look forward to it. They love it, and they're not happy when I'm not there, but they do enjoy getting the feedback that I record back to them. They prefer me to be there for it. So that's definitely helped out the organization.
And Karen, in this case, you hired Jack Daly, the author, to work with your team, right? So he consulted with you?
He did, yeah. So, I saw Jack speak once, and then he came back to Tampa a couple months later, so I sent my entire staff to his second talk.
Gotcha. So
he
you
was
got everybody
awesome.
active. You got the whole team active in the whole philosophy of the book.
Absolutely, yeah. They all read the book. They saw him speak. He's very engaging, and he's got great ideas like this. And so, and he's got proven results. And just I saw him speak for the first time in January. We started implementing some of his things in February, and our sales have doubled just by implementing some of these things. And I attribute a lot of it to the role practicing.
And it's the fundamentals of just putting this into action into your company, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Part of also what he taught us is having a sales playbook. So, for us, a good referral source is like a mortgage broker or a realtor. So having specific folks that we're actually targeting, going after, and then if it's a good relationship where we're able to give them referrals, they give us referrals, then there's certain levels, okay, they've given us 5 referrals this month, that's great, now let's give them, Bucks tickets or something like that. So just having a defined process and way to go about it, and he calls it a sales playbook, and he's coming out with a book. I actually engaged a sales manager through his organization, and we developed our own sales playbook, but he's developing one that he's going to release with his hyper sales book as well.
Okay, and then the next concept is...
Yes, so
there you go.
hiring new employees. So, in my company, we've been around since 1971. A lot of times we had long-term employees that would either retire or maybe move or do something like that. So they left the organization. We'd always throw a little party for them, give them a bottle of wine. Hey, thanks, it's been great. So his philosophy is don't celebrate folks leaving, celebrate people coming. And I'll tell you, it's made a tremendous difference. So any one of you guys that have friends, they're going to talk about it. Oh, I'm excited. My first day is tomorrow at this new company. You're going to ask them the next time you see him, hey, Karen, how was your first day? So Jack believes, and I've done it 3 times now since I've seen him speak, and it works, making a big impression on the employee, not saddling them with paperwork. Oh, hey, thanks for coming in today, Karen. Here's all your paperwork you need to fill out in order to get payroll and all this stuff, but not doing that, taking around the office, introducing them, having a card that's waiting for them when they get there. It's welcoming them to the company with all the employees signing it with a special message, sending a bottle of wine home that night to their spouse and saying, hey, we're so excited that Karen joined the organization, looking forward to more things to come. What are things? Having their business cards ready, just simple things like that. I mean, we're a small business, so it's hard to have the office all ready to go and the business cards and everything, but you're hiring somebody, so have those business cards waiting for them on their office desk when they get in, so that way they feel like, truly welcome.
So this is tremendous positive reinforcement on someone that just joined your team.
Right.
Their spouse is happy.
Yeah.
They got a bottle of wine. So it starts the whole thing off with the right foot, and then they're telling people about the company they work for.
Absolutely, because our first day at my agency used to be, here's all the paperwork, we need your, copy of your driver's license, we need all this stuff. And then, they're setting up their desk how they want it. We're getting their business cards ordered. So we've just kind of advanced those things. We know in advance that we're bringing somebody on, so why not order the business cards? We know in advance that they're coming, so why not send around a welcome card that everyone can sign in the office? Having a lunch catered in is also what we do as well, so that way we can shut the phones down and the employees can all get to know the new person on the first day.
Okay, and the last one, I think you kind of covered it, but, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So the sales playbook, it's literally just defined, very similar to what Adam's talking about with the process. So step 1, step 2, step 3, okay, this relationship isn't, a good relationship for us. Let's move to the next, mortgage person or realtor or whatever that particular person is that we're targeting. But also in the sales process, how you want your producers or whatever you call it, the salespeople to, what do you want them to do? Go out and meet with the prospect, build that rapport, and then the next step is, coming back out or offering a quote or whatever it might be, but just defining that process, 1, 2, 3, 4. And, in my business, at least, I'm go out and sell commercial insurance. I never to put a process around it. I just did it, But that's not fair to the new people coming on to expect that they're going to do exactly what I do when I didn't have it written down. Right. So just taking the time to write it down has been huge for us.
Yeah, and one of our members, Ben Brown, just did master the art of closing the sale. So if anyone needs this or you want to brush up on it, see me after. I just read it over the weekend, and it's a really great book, and it's got a lot of great principles just to focus in on the sales. So, all right, Karen, is there anything else from that book? Because, I see a lot of light bulbs going off. Anything else that you've implemented?
Hiring a sales manager. I know I touched on that too, but, if you're trying to be your own sales manager, you get caught up in the day-to-day things don't happen. Just what gets measured gets done, and just picking certain things, whether it's, going out and meeting with so many folks, what works and what doesn't if you're measuring it. referral sources, where you get your referrals from, who you're targeting, those type of things. And so I outsourced that piece because I was the sales manager for my sales folks, and it wasn't consistent. So now I have somebody, and it's through the phone. It's not, I didn't bring on an additional employee. He's a 1099 contractor, but it's just a regular call that he has with my employees, and all he's doing is just making sure that they are doing what they said they were going to do and measuring it and monitoring it, and it's done consistently.
So that's great that you could outsource that piece, because a lot of business owners get hung up on that piece, and it drags them down, and they're trying to also run the business at the same time.
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
And that's your team, right?
That was us at the Gasparilla run. Yep. So,
that's awesome. So the culture is alive and well. You could see it in these pictures. All right, next up we're going to bring Mark Ensign, and he has Mark. Let's give Mark a round of applause. Come on up, Mark. Oh, that was nice. You didn't have to do that. That's yours, Mark. And Karen, if you give Mark the mic. Mark has the book from Donald Miller, and it's 1,000,000 Miles in 1,000 Years. So Mark, tell us a little bit about this book and why this is your go-to book.
That is my book. Well, not my book, but you get it.
Yeah.
So it's a little unconventional in the sense it's not really a business book technically. It's Donald Miller. If you don't know who he is, he's a memoirist. Memoirist? Is that a word?
Yeah, I guess so.
He's
a writer.
He writes memoirs. If he wrote a book called Blue Like Jazz a couple years ago, very popular book. And this book starts at when two producers came to him and said, we want to turn Blue Like Jazz into a movie, but we just need to rewrite the screenplay because it's too boring and it's not exciting enough. And so here's a guy that writes a memoir about his life, and it's not exciting enough for people to watch. And so from that point on, he realized how important story is, and so he spent a year going back and editing his past to make it more exciting, and creating a future that people could tolerate, that people could watch, and people could really grow from. And so the book is like that journey of him, constantly going back into his past and fixing that, and then going on a bike ride across the country and climbing a mountain in Peru and creating a life that.
Did he do those things though?
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
Really did.
All right.
Like in the future, like he did, but in the past, he kind of.
Yeah, right. So I have the making of a good story slide up.
So like what I got out of it, like what occurred for me with reading this book was, really how important a story is. If we were to, take anybody in this, here and stand them up in front of the room and ask you to read your about us to the rest of the room, 99% of the people here would be suicidal by the third paragraph. Like it's just because we founded in 1972, Tampa, Florida, and it's just boring statistics that we as people don't really connect with. So really, it's about like really creating your story. There are people I wanted to pull out Jeff and Judy. I warned them ahead of time I might say something about them because I researched them yesterday. Your website was down yesterday, by the way, and their LinkedIn bio talked about financial advisor, and this is what we do, and it's very technical. And it's hard to connect with that. We as people just don't connect with that. You sound very smart. It sounds great. I love what you do. But like reading, if I just knew you from there, I wouldn't know what I'd be lost. I don't know if I would hire, based on that. However, I know you guys, and I know, and like they've been in my house, and they're friends with my kid. Like they know my kids, and we've gone out to dinner. They've been to my wife's 25th birthday, not her 40th birthday, her 25th birthday. And so I would trust them with my last nickel. That's because I know them. I know their story. I know how they built their business. I know what their values are. I know what they mean. I know what's important to them. So how do we take that and create your About Us page so it reads like that? So everybody that shows up on your site can fall in love with them like me and my family did. And the people in this room that get to know them and get to know, and so I started seeing a lot of my life in that kind of story, and I started learning how to tell stories, and I started learning how to see my business as a story, and not just about founded in 1990.
Yeah, not just highlights,
Right.
Bullet points of
Right.
something.
So just because I felt like I had to not only be warm and fuzzy, but actually sound like I know what I was talking about, I put together like from what I stole from the book is like that making of a good story. And it really starts off with a character, and that character could be you, could be your business. But I would say, I don't care what business you're in, it should start with you. Right? I can't connect with GE. Like that doesn't. I don't have a strong connection with GE, but I can certainly get connected to Jack Welch. I can read his story and find out what his life was like and what he went through to take that on.
Or Richard Branson with Virgin.
Richard,
right.
Yeah. So start with you. What's your story? And so then the second step is
Did I
go
ahead?
back one.
Sorry.
So you have that character who's you, and they have a problem. Like you didn't just start a business because you woke up one morning and said, "Hey, I'm going to go grab some money from some people and give them something." Like you had something that made you passionate, that made you go like, "Wow, I can do this. I can create something. Look, I have some value to give. I have something to offer." And it stems from a problem that you've probably experienced or something that you've created. Then the next one meets a guide. You find a solution, whether that is coming from a prospect, somebody that reaches out to you, somebody that's inspiring to you, and they give you a plan. This is how you can get started. This is maybe it's a book that you read, maybe it's somebody that you went to a Tony Robbins seminar, or maybe there's somebody you saw somebody do something that you thought was impossible, and you did it, and then that calls you to action. And then the results are either a success or a failure. And every good story follows this. Like I don't care. You could pick a movie, pick a book, pick anything. And the example which seemed the most appropriate is Star Wars. You have a character, Luke. He has a problem. Evil Empire. That's a problem, right? He meets a guide, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan gives him a plan. Use the Force. It's a hell of a good plan. Calls them to action, go defeat the Empire, then that action results in either success, he either destroys the Empire, or the rebellion is crushed, and we all know how the story ends. So, like every story, your business can be put into this little framework, and you can actually write something that is beyond, founded in 1972 in Tampa, Florida. Here's a bunch of boring stats that you really don't care about. And what I would challenge you to do is to look at your About Us page as if you were going to stand in front of this room and read it to the room. Read it to everybody here. See how, try to get somebody to fall in love with you from from a distance without having ever met you. I mean, because for you to say that, it's a lot easier to meet somebody and then you really connect because you got the eye contact, you shake the hand, if they have a sweaty palm, you don't like it. All that stuff is great. But like, how many people here have read the book or seen the movie The Notebook? And keep your hands up. Now, how many people have felt something, cried, or just the people that put their hands down? You guys are dead inside. So you didn't need to meet them in order to feel something, right? So you can create that on your website. You can create that in your marketing materials. You can create that in your bio and who you are and what your company stands for and what your company means. Like, you can create that, and people can connect with you. So you might not sell the old crotchety man that doesn't want to, wants the 1972 thing, But for everybody else, like, this is really, this is what we're looking for. Like, this is what we want. So that's what the.
So now, is this your copy? You're not giving this away, are you?
No.
You know that there's a bookmark in here.
Yeah, it's fake.
Are you sure?
You can have it if you want.
Oh, okay. That's a good-looking fake. All right, cool.
I know, right?
All right, just wait here.
I give
This
my
is your
kids
book.
all the time.
Do you really? You fooled me. $100 bill in there. Okay, so you're also a counterfeiter. That's good to know about you.
Well, hey, a gig's a gig.
All right, so what we're going to do is we'll have Greg Wells coming up to do a quick presentation on the one thing. Guys, thank you for sharing these nuggets. I saw a lot of us taking notes, and just really thank you again. Take that with you if you need it.
Taking my book back again?
No, that's yours. Sorry. I almost snagged your book there. Okay. What we're going to do real quick is I'm going to get Greg's presentation up. I think Greg is all mic'd up. And make sure to hang out and talk to each presenter because they're just a wealth of knowledge. So this is a PowerPoint that was done on last year's cruise, and it was a lot of light bulbs went on, and it's the one thing. So let's give Greg a round of applause. Greg, right or left?
Thank you.
It's all yours, brother.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here today, and I hear from a lot of people that they have goals about reading books. I have a goal to try to read 1 to 2 books every month, and I feel like I don't have to read anything the rest of June because I got 4 good books under my belt here today. But I've been a member of TBBO for probably 7 years now, since the beginning. There's a lot of new faces here, so it's nice to get to meet everyone. I remember back in the day I was at a meetup that Chris was running, and Katie was one of the people in attendance there who wanted help with our website. That was kind of how they met back in the day, and it was great to be there for that. It's been great to see the group grow, and so much value that we all get from being here. So I wanted to share this book that's had a big impact on my life and my business. We've built a whole coaching practice with this book at kind of the center of it, and I think you're going to find that this will really help you in focusing on what you need to get done and getting things done. That's what it's done for me. So the book, the main concept in the book that I'm going to share with you and train you on today, you'll actually know how to do this coming out of the book. You can apply this to any of these areas of your life that you want to. And it's important that you're using this concept in the book, as focusing concept, in all of those areas, because any one of those areas goes down, meaning, if your business is not running at full steam or your relationships are not in balance, one flat tire can take down the whole car. And so the big problem that the book solves is answering the question, what should I do? Most of us fall into this analysis paralysis and tell ourselves a big lie that we don't know what to do next in our business, or we don't know what we really need to be doing. And the truth is, you do know what to do, you just may not have total certainty in it. And this book, the technique that I'm going to train you on from the book, leads you through this analysis paralysis to what I call liberation. The first part of these slides are kind of more into how I've used this instead of actually stuff from the book, but we'll go in right through the book. This has been my turnaround. I've applied this technique that you're going to learn both health-wise. This is kind of me before and after from 50 pounds ago. And we've built a whole coaching practice around this now. And as a result of following these techniques in this, I've gotten to go speak with Tony Robbins, did a book with Jack Canfield. And so the question that most of us really are asking is, what should I do? Where should I start? You have these big goals. I love that TBBO has you writing down on the sheet now what your 3 goals are for the next 30 days. And I hope you're setting big, challenging goals. That's part of what gets you excited every day. I was having an interesting talk with Anthony. I was telling him, he was asking me, do I still go to a lot of Tony Robbins seminars? And I said, when you have real clarity on what it is you want and why, you really don't need a lot of motivation anymore. But a lot of times the goals we set seem really big. It seems really hard to get there. What this book talks about is how you're going to get there. The fastest and shortest way to get there is by leveraging momentum. It's the domino effect. So if you've ever seen dominoes, a very small domino at the beginning there can wind up knocking down something that is almost 50 times its size. And if you can learn to use the domino effect in how you are productive, you can use this geometric progression. See, what happens with most of us is we make a list of things we could do to succeed in our business, and we start doing all of these things, but we're not actually taking the straightest path, and we're not leveraging any domino progression. And because the problem is life doesn't really line up that way naturally. There's no easy path of do this, then this, and then this, and things will happen sequentially. But this book shows you how to do that. And to help you illustrate what you're going to learn how to do, the book talks about breaking it down with the 80-20 principle. Now, we've all heard the 80-20 principle, right? But the inside of this book is compounding the 80-20 principle. I'm going through this pretty fast because I usually train this in an hour, and they gave me 20 minutes here. But compounding the 80-20 principle works like this. Let's say you have a goal of you want to double your business in the next 90 days. That was a goal of mine at the beginning of this year. One of my businesses, we wanted to double it in the next 90 days. There's probably 1,000 things that I could do, right? And so if you apply the 80-20 principle like most people would, you'd break that down to 200 200 things, right? 20% of the 1,000 things that I could do. What the book challenges you to do is to then apply the 80-20 rule again and again and again until you're breaking things down to what the one thing is you really need to do. And they give you a technique for doing this. Once you've done this, you've lined up the steps sequentially of what you need to do in your life, and you leverage the domino effect. So as the book talks about, there's one thing. The book gives you a question that I'm going to train you on how to use this question. It falls right into Tony Robbins' principles as well. To get the answer of what you need to be doing, you just need to ask the right question. And this question is really Keller Williams' brilliance. This book is written by Keller Williams, by the way. It's the largest real estate company in the world. They have more realtors than any other company in the world. And here's the question. So I would encourage you at this point to write down this question word for word. I'm going to break down how it works through a simple case study here. And then I'd love to help any of you today. I'll be staying around afterwards, apply this. And this is part of what we do in my coaching practice. But my coaching practice right now is built around helping executives and job seekers make the next change. We're newly looking to work with business owners. So if anybody wanted to be kind of a guinea pig, I'd be happy to work with you and coach you through this, no cost, just as a TBBO benefit, because it's something that we're looking to build next. So here's the question. What's the one thing I can do? And it's important that every word in here is strategically placed. I can do is an NLP-based command. What's something that I can do such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? So what you're going to do is take that question. That's called the focusing question in the book. By the way, there's no need to read the book. I'm saving you the time of doing that after today. A couple people that were talking to me on my way in here, they said, that book's been on my desk for months. I'm like, well, you're not going to need to read it because I'm going to train you on exactly how it works. And the beauty of the book is this question. So what you're going to do is take the question and insert your goal. And then insert a time frame. So in this case, it's what's the one thing I can do to double my business, and I challenge myself to do it in 30 days, such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary. The second part of that question, it's important you don't leave that out. That's the part that triggers your brain to think about prioritizing things. This exact process I'm going through here generated $384,000 in revenue for me in the last 12 months. So that's the question that I started off asking. What you're going to do next is ask yourself, what could I do? Write that down. It might seem really simple. Why would I write that down? The word could is one of the most powerful words in the world. And Tony Robbins talks about that a lot. The book doesn't make a big deal about that enough. I feel like adding that in on top of the book is going to create massive value for you. It's the same thing like I asked my daughter, how was her day today? She says, it was good, Dad. She's a teenager now. I'm like, what was great in your day today? And she's like, nothing. And when I ask her, what could be great? All of a sudden, she's got a lot to say. Could unlocks the brain about what could I do? So what you're going to do is then brainstorm a list of things that you could do to double your business. Now, if any of you have businesses that use the internet, these same things are probably on your list, right? This was my initial list of what could I do to double my business. Remember, I'm trying to double my business in 30 days here. I could go get more leads and internet traffic. I could improve our referral process. I could improve our webinar sales. We do these online trainings, webinars. I could come up with new ways to help and serve. I could diversify into helping business owners. At the time, we were only working with job seekers. This was 12 months ago. And so what most business owners would do is they'd have this list and they'd go to work on it. And I'd go start talking to somebody about buying leads, and I'd work with my team. I'd delegate somebody to take over the referral process. I'd think about what can we do to get our sales up. I'd start coming up with new ways for new business ideas. And what I'm doing is falling into the trap of going like this to try to get to doubling my business. Because you're working on all of these things sequentially. You're working off of essentially a to-do list, which makes you feel good when you cross things off, but really doesn't lead to any productivity. It's not going to lead to doubling your business in 30 days. So when you apply the question, it forces you to prioritize. You're only going to be allowed to do one of these things. And so what is the one that would actually make everything else easier or unnecessary? And remember, the 30-day time frame is in there too. So let's go through this case study here. When I looked at get more leads and internet traffic, I don't know if that one thing is going to double my business or not. And that's not really something that I can do in 30 days. It's going to take a long time for me to find a place to go buy the traffic from and then negotiate the deal and start having the traffic come. That just wasn't possible under the parameters of that question. That question forced me to prioritize that out of the loop. Improving our referral process, the same thing. Yeah, we should do that. We should be working on that. It's important but not urgent. It's not going to lead me to double my business in the next 30 days. And that's what I'm driving myself to do. Improving our webinar sales. This was the one I determined, you know what, I could actually get this done. I could make some changes to how we sell on our webinars, and it could be done and live in the next 30 days. And potentially that would mean everything else is now unnecessary, easier or unnecessary. I wouldn't need to do all those other parts if I got that part right. So here's the beauty of how you take this question and apply it back to that 80-20 compounding process that I showed you. You then take the again, compress the time frame, and plug in the answer you just had. Right? Am I explaining that clear? It's interesting because I do this training on a webinar a lot, and you don't really get to see people's faces or responses. So the answer was, from the first brainstorm, was I'm going to improve our webinar sales. Now I'm going to ask the question, what's the one thing I can do in the next 2 weeks to improve our webinar sales such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And you see how I'm lining up the dominoes. The really big domino is double my business in 30 days. The domino in front of that is improve our webinar sales. The domino in front of that is what I'm trying to get to now. So I go back to the process of what could I do? I brainstorm 5 possible solutions. And what I'm building here are my milestones. I'm lining up the dominoes. So I had 5 possible solutions. I could get more people to sign up for our webinar. And again, applying that question of, does that make everything else easier or unnecessary? No. It's going to be hard to get more leads and traffic. That's kind of the same answer I had before. And the mistake I would typically make, or any business owner would make, is you'd start working on all of these things. Again, all of these subsets of improve our webinar sales would be things I would fall into the trap of trying to do, instead of finding the one thing that makes everything else unnecessary. Redoing the presentation, I certainly thought about that. That was a possibility, but that was going to be a lot of work. And our presentation was pretty good already. Reworking the offer, coming up with a whole new webinar. In the end, I realized if I could just get more people to show up to our existing training, that would make everything else unnecessary. And so I save my time doing this. Not only do we wind up doubling our business, but I wind up doing it in essentially a 4-hour work week. But we're not going to stop there. We're going to compound it again and break it down to 1 week. So now I'm really challenging myself to make actual forward progress in the next week towards that goal. What's the one thing I can do in the next week to get more people to show up such that doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? You go through the process again. You ask yourself, what could I do? You brainstorm, either with your team or with yourself or with your coach. I highly recommend you don't try to do this process on your own, because you kind of get stuck talking to yourself in your head. You can't see things that other people can see. And what we came up with, again, here in this list, if I start at the top there, offering them a reward, improving the emails, like rewriting all of our emails was going to be not something I could get done in a week. Giving them a reminder text, that was a possibility. But what we decided would work best, would actually make everything else unnecessary, is what about people that sign up for the webinars? What if we just call and tell them, hey, we're excited for you to come to this webinar? Well, it worked great. We wound up in the first 30 days, monthly gross revenue went up from $225,000 to $257,000. And it didn't exactly double our business in 30 days, but over the course of a year, it added $384,000 new dollars in revenue. And the question is, was it really worth it? The answer was, to me at that time, was yes, because I got everything done in the shortest, fastest amount of time and was able to go to a Tony Robbins event with the people I love. So I work with an accountability coach to drive through this process. An accountability coach is really just success insurance. They talk a lot about that in the book, as well as something that they highly recommend. So that's the process and the question. Let me just put the question up there again, and kind of how you compound the question. The magic of this book is in the wording of the question and in the compounding effect of how you use the question to focus in on what you really need to be doing. And they teach this and encourage you to use this in all areas of your life. Think about if you have a goal to lose, 10 pounds in the next 30 days. Well, what's the one thing I could do to to lose 10 pounds in the next 30 days. Most people would start with, I could work out and eat healthier. Okay, what's the one thing I could do in the next 2 weeks to work out consistently? Well, I could, commit to a trainer. I could or schedule it in my calendar, right? You'd go through your coulds and you'd wind up coming up with breaking this all the way down. So I apply this I use this every day in my life in the 4 main areas of life. I use it for my relationships. I use it for my health. I use it for my family, and I use it in my business, and do it daily. And here's the one thing I need to get done today. My one thing today always leads to my one thing for the week, which leads to my one thing for the month, and I push for really big things in a month, and that's how you're able to get really big things done fast following this process. So again, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay around and talk. I'd love to get to meet you. There's a lot of new faces here. Happy to share a lot of good, embarrassing stories about Chris and Katie over the years as well. It's always a common ground for conversation. But thanks so much for having me, Chris.
Thank you. Let's give Greg, stay up here. Let me have that. Thank you.